Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma.
Purdue Pharma. Purdue Pharma.
Purdue.
The Purdue.
Purdue.
Other opinions released today impact Purdue Pharma.
The addictive painkiller, considered one of the initial $12 billion.
Bankruptcy laws should not allow the rich and the powerful.
Opioids, because a lawsuit against the company
Decided in a few months.
Purdue Pharma will make of OxyContin responsible for much of the crisis.
For their misconduct when they're not bankrupt.
To treat pain more effectively and
Purdue Pharma, a name that should be known for life-saving medicine. Instead, it's a company synonymous with death. Owned by the billionaire Sackler family, Purdue raked in over $35 billion from their infamous painkiller, OxyContin. But what they didn't tell you, this drug wasn't just a solution for pain. It was the spark that ignited the opioid epidemic, one of the deadliest health crises in American history. More than 500,000 Americans have died from opioid overdoses in the last 2 decades. 500,000 lives lost to addiction. And at the center of it all, Purdue Pharma. But that's just the beginning of the nightmare. Purdue's aggressive marketing, their outright lies, and their role in flooding the market with addictive painkillers have led to billions in lawsuits. Yet the Sackler family, they walked away, billions still in their pockets, no jail time, no accountability. How did they get away with it? Today, we're diving deep into the dark truth behind Purdue Pharma, exposing how they profited from an epidemic that killed hundreds of thousands, and how they got away with it. But before we expose the full scandal, let's go back to where it all started. The story begins in the 1990s, when Purdue Pharma sought to create something that would revolutionize pain treatment. At the time, opioids, a class of strong painkillers derived from the opium poppy plant, were known to be highly addictive. These drugs, like morphine and heroin, are used to treat severe pain, but they also come with a dangerous risk of addiction. But Purdue had a vision, a slow-release opioid painkiller that, in theory, wouldn't lead to addiction. Enter OxyContin, a powerful opioid marketed as the miracle drug for chronic pain. Purdue claimed it was safe for long-term use and less addictive than other opioids. But this was the beginning of their lie. They aggressively marketed OxyContin to doctors, claiming it had a low risk of addiction, while behind closed doors, they knew the truth. Internal documents later revealed that Purdue was fully aware of OxyContin's addictive properties from the very start. But they didn't stop. With billions to be made, Purdue flooded the market, offering free trips, luxurious dinners, and huge incentives to push their drug into the hands of doctors. By the early 2000s, OxyContin had become a household name, prescribed to millions of Americans, from those with chronic pain to people recovering from minor injuries. Now, here's where the darkness truly sets in. Purdue wasn't just marketing OxyContin, they were lying about its dangers. Doctors were told the drug had a less than 1% chance of causing addiction when used properly. But behind the scenes, Purdue knew better. They had hard evidence that OxyContin was being widely abused. By 2001, Purdue knew OxyContin was being crushed, snorted, and injected to create stronger highs. Instead of pulling the drug or issuing warnings, they did the unthinkable. They doubled down. They pushed for even more sales while ignoring the growing addiction crisis. By 2007, Purdue Pharma was found guilty in federal court of misleading the public about OxyContin's dangers. They paid $600 million in fines. Sounds like a huge number, right? But not when you're making billions every year. For Purdue, this was just the cost of business. But this was just the tip of the iceberg. Even after being caught and fined, Purdue didn't stop. They doubled down, continuing to market OxyContin as a safe, non-addictive solution for pain, despite knowing the devastation it was causing. Their greed knew no bounds. While Purdue raked in billions, the American public paid the ultimate price. Over the course of the opioid epidemic, 500,000 people died from opioid overdoses. That's more than the number of Americans who died in World War II. Entire communities were destroyed, families were ripped apart, and Purdue, they just kept getting richer. In West Virginia, one of the hardest hit states, opioid prescriptions were flowing in by the millions. In one county, there were enough pills shipped to supply every resident with 156 pills a year. It was an epidemic that Purdue helped create, but they did nothing to stop. People who had never even heard of OxyContin were now hooked. Stories of patients being prescribed the drug after a minor surgery, only to become hopelessly addicted and eventually overdose, became horrifyingly common. The more people became addicted, the more Purdue profited. By the mid-2010s, Purdue's actions were finally catching up with them. Lawsuits began piling up. States, counties, and individuals were suing Purdue for their role in the opioid crisis. And in 2020, Purdue Pharma filed for bankruptcy, attempting to settle the thousands of lawsuits against them. But this is where the true horror of the story unfolds. Purdue Pharma was hit with $8.3 billion in fines and settlements. A staggering number, right? But for the Sackler family, this was nothing. Why? Because before the lawsuits ever reached their doorstep, the Sacklers had already funneled out over $10 billion from Purdue's accounts. $10 billion, quietly siphoned away, protecting their fortune, while the company and the victims crumbled beneath the weight of the opioid epidemic. And when the company was forced into bankruptcy, the Sacklers, they walked away with $11 billion still intact. They didn't lose a cent. Not one member of the family saw the inside of a courtroom, let alone a prison cell. No one paid the price for the 500,000 lives destroyed. How could this happen? The Sacklers played the system to perfection. They exploited bankruptcy laws, shielding themselves from responsibility. Purdue Pharma took the fall, while the Sacklers kept their billions, untouched by the devastation they helped create. $11 billion, 500,000 dead, and not a single day in prison. That's the cost of greed in America. Purdue Pharma may be gone, but the devastation they caused will last for generations. This is a story of greed, deception, and tragedy, and it's a story that should never be forgotten. If this video shocked you, then you'll love our video exposing another giant with a dark side, Dell. You won't believe the scandals they've been hiding, from selling faulty products to the US government, to corporate espionage, and even sweatshop labor. So, if you thought Purdue was bad, wait until you hear what Dell has been up to. Click here to watch the full video. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more untold stories of corporate corruption. Thank you for watching.